Welcome to this particular session on rural and urban entrepreneurship. So, before I start, I just need to look at the difference, or something about the rural structure and rural system. When we talk about that rural entrepreneurship, there is a first thing comes to our mind is that it is something related to villages. It is something related to the poor class. It is something related to that undeveloped area. So when we talk about that rural entrepreneurship, it automatically indicates, reflects urban entrepreneurship. Why we talk about this particular topic in this particular subject? Because when we talk about this rural entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship, so you know that there is a very big economic imbalance, developmental imbalance in rural and urban area. And in recent days, you might have seen that there was a reverse migration. Laborers were migrating from cities to villages. This was some unique scene that you might have observed and seen, but in usual case, it is not that the movement of laborers from urban to rural. Rather, usually the labor migration from rural area to urban area is very common. Now, why this urban movement is there? Why we need to discuss about the rural entrepreneurship? Why we need to talk about these in differentiating manner? So it is very important to learn that usually rural people migrate for the job in cities or in metros, so that they can earn, they can get job. So one point is very clear, that there is a difference in job opportunities in rural area and in urban area, and that is why we see that labor migration. And we also see that the job opportunities are one thing, growth opportunities, even if youth class in rural area gets job, then the chances of growth are very, very less. So growth opportunities are not there. Point is that suppose some laborer or some youth from a village get some job in any oil mill, or some local shop. So for next even 5 years, 10 years, the earning and the level and the status would be same. So there will be no growth for that particular youth class. So another point is that the growth opportunities are very less, because the normally job opportunities are very less or not there. Another point is that because of this migration, there is a lot of pressure on urban infrastructure. You have seen that when labor migrate from village and goes to city, then there is a huge demand of infrastructure. Say for example, civil amenities, living places, food, water, sanitation, and all these housing. So because of this pressure, the urban area start facing the a load, extra load of population. Now this population load would definitely affect that urban life, urban infrastructure, urban system. But how to manage with this? Even after decades and decades, government is not taking care of this rural entrepreneurship seriously. If they take it seriously, so more and more entrepreneurial venture and the industries will be established in undeveloped, untapped areas, and the migration may be slower down. And because of this, what is happening, in rural area, the economy is very weak. Why we say economy is weak? Look at a case of normal farmer who is having some 1 acre of land, and he might be earning somewhat, three crops, seasonal crops every year, and he might be earning more than what a clerk earns in urban area, city area. But even then, that farmer is not able to live a life better than a clerk. The reason may be that rural economy is, so much so different than urban economy. And even though that rural economy is not run by the professionals, run by the knowledge resources, or do not have that you know very sharp professional approach to economy. Say for example, what happens in rural area, I simply say that normal issues of helping neighbors, you can understand. In urban area, nobody talks about that, how much you invest to manage neighbors, almost zero. But in rural area, in villages, their relationships matters a lot, and neighbors mean everything. They invest in relationship, whereas in urban area, relationship investment is almost negligible, and everybody is professional. So point is to look into that how this rural economy differs from this urban economy, and we need to look into this, and how to fuel up this rural economy. Imbalance in development is very issue, because you know most of the jobs are in urban area, city area, metros. So per capita income of urban area is much higher than per capita income of rural area. And because of that per capita income, obviously the livelihood would be affected, the development would be affected, like general amenities, civil amenities, road transport, water, sanitation. These facilities are not very much in very good condition in rural areas, and it is only because of that that government is not finding it right to develop that area, so that the rural area, rural economy, rural industry, rural people can develop. So looking into this aspect, obviously as an academician we should look into that how to develop this rural economy. And to develop this rural economy, that there are some um, advantages over urban area. Those advantages may be that the raw material and resources you may find that in rural area. So because of that, even though in spite of that manpower in rural area, in spite of that raw material available in rural area, in spite of the land available in rural area, in spite of the many resources available in rural area, we have not been able to look a very bright future of rural development, rural economy, rural entrepreneurship. Maybe because of that there are certain limitations or certain problems. If you look at the problems, this slide very clearly mentions few of those problems which are the main causal factors for non-development of the rural entrepreneurship, or they may be these factors may be considered as the hurdles in rural entrepreneurship. If someone wants some rural village boy wants to start any startup, so the problems are very there. Look at, they don't have business exposure, they don't have industries nearby, so that they can observe, they can see, And because of this non-exposure of businesses, they are not able to understand, they are not able to look into in-depth manner that what they can do if they think of starting any industry. So how to solve this problem? They don't have business exposure. So to look at that business exposure, they, they must be they must be given by government the facility to visit big industries on government expenditure, and or rather government should make some provisions that every big industry must have at least uh, this activity of business exposure, or visit or sort of thing under the corporate social responsibility, a mandatory clause, so that anybody can visit industry under that scheme and look at the business if they are interested in, and they are bound to give details of those businesses. Rural people do have usually very low confidence. Now, how this low confidence comes? Because of no business exposure, because of no knowledge, because of no idea, because of no background, they are not confident. But it is not that rural people are usually having low confidence. No. If you talk about their farming, cultivation, if you talk about their rural activities, they are full of confidence. And even when they will talk about the farming and cultivation, even urban city people, they will lose confidence. So they basically produce because they are doing that activity, they have exposure of that activity, they have every process they know it about that. But in case of any business, they are blind about the future activity. They are not confident because they are not aware that if they will do this thing, what will happen. And even if with a low confidence, even if with no exposure, if someone thinks to start any business, then there is a problem that they do not have knowledge how to start, from where to start. That means what is the starting point, what is the procedure of going ahead. In this case, at least I can understand that in case of a startup, even urban areas, urban entrepreneurs are not very well aware about this. Even professionals are sometimes not very well aware about the complete knowledge. But yes, at least they know that if something happens, what is the B plan. But in rural area, this thing is a very big issue. They do not have idea that if they fail, what to do. Because what I find of this low confidence and this thing is that they have very strong ethical issues. They do not have so much of faith on financial issues. They invest in relationship. So when they take some money from someone, maybe bank or maybe someone money lender, or from relative, so their focus is that they have to return it, that they cannot ruin the relationship. And this put pressure on their business, and because of that they are not able to make justice with the business activities. And since they do not have knowledge about the business, so maybe that they are using old technology, or they are not using the right technology, or they are not using the right thing at the right time, which is called management. Management is simply doing right things at right time in the right manner. So they may not be aware about this, and because of that they may not be very successful or successful. They don't know how to calculate, how to understand, how to learn about the viability and soundness of the project or the business. Say for example, I can tell you the example that you know uh, rural in this East UP, before 80s, this potato farming was very much, right from starting from Barabanki to Basti and all these areas. But nowadays, if you see, you will find that there is a called as a peppermint oil. So they are into the business of peppermint oil. So they grow that peppermint leaf instead of potato. They are very much confident in that leaf, and they extract that peppermint oil, menthol. So they are they are being given this training under government schemes about how to extract that peppermint oil from peppermint leaf, and but they are not very much aware about the soundness of the business of this menthol oil or peppermint oil, because this particular peppermint oil is mostly used as a raw material in pharma industry. And what I see, that pharma industry is, or the intermediaries or the brokers, they play the whole game. The fruits are not going to the farmers, so they are not able to understand that if they do that business, they do that farming into professional manner, how much profit they can earn, how much strong business they can build. And with this, you can also understand that there are financial issues, there are technological issues, there are financial issues means they may not have a very sound financial position. For every farming, for every season crop, they are supposed to take loan from either money lender, or they are supposed to go to bank, or even the government is having some provision of kisan credit cards and kisan loans and all those things. But farmers are not being given this knowledge that how to manage this loan, bank loan. They are given this perception that, you look, if your loan will be beyond your limitation, you can make this issue political and the government can waive off your loan. But this, by the time that government waive off this loan of farmers, and this benefit goes to or reaches to farmers, there are so many problems that occurs in rural area. Farmers do suicide and all those issues we have come across. So the financial issues have resulted rural life very much. You can look at that what is happening in some of the areas of Maharashtra and then MP area, even in some of the UP area of Jhansi area belt. Farmers are taking suicide because of that. They are not able to get the produce from their land. It may be because of the technology issues. They are using very traditional, very old technology, and uh, you know you might be thinking that why we are talking about that agriculture and farming, because if you look at that traditionally, this farming and agriculture, this has been a part of entrepreneurship, rural entrepreneurship. Apart from this, some farmers are doing that fishing business, that may be with some professional approach. There are some oil mill that may be in professional approach. But farming, which lacks most of the time financial mismanagement, financial resource management, technology, they might be using still the old technology of farming. So technology issue is very much with the rural area. Technology is not available. Sometimes technology is costly. Sometimes technology is beyond their reach. Sometimes they are not even aware about the technology. So these issues are definitely hampering the whole system of rural entrepreneurship. The market issues are definitely, uh, if they produce some product, now where to sell it, where is the customer, who is going to purchase? Because if you look at that population density, obviously there are rural population density is very low as compared to urban, and they do not have purchasing power also as compared to urban area. They do not have uses also as compared to urban area. Whereas they don't, rural people, rural youth is having very fertile brain. So innovation quotient may be very high in case of rural entrepreneur or rural youth class, but they don't have knowledge, they have low confidence, they don't know how to start, they don't know the soundness of the business, they only know what they are seeing, they are not able to visualize future. Financial issues are very much there. Technological issues, these technological issues can be solved by the government by providing technology training or technology awareness camp, or helping them through some district industry centers. The market issues, even you can look at the very simple example of market issues. Potato is produced by farmers. Potato production cost every year, the potato farmers are doing suicide, because sometimes they are not able to pay the money back to money lender. Sometimes they are not able to pay the money or the rental of their cold storage. Sometimes they are not able to take their potatoes out of their cold storage because of that non-payment. And usually the raw potato, the rates of cold store or the government acquisition rate or the minimum support price, if you talk about, that is much lower than the market price. When we purchase 1 kg of potato in urban area, right now it is 40 rupees kg, and the cost of production of the farmers would be hardly 4-5 rupees kg, and the farmers sell it hardly at 4, 5 or 6 rupees kg. So major benefit to farmers rarely goes, benefit I say, the maximum benefit goes to these intermediaries, because the farmers are not finding right marketplace, because they cannot keep that potatoes for long. They don't have technology to convert it into potato chips. These big industries can convert them into potato chips and make that 5 rupee kg potato as 2000 rupees kg potato by simple technology process. That technology is not any rocket technology, but that technology is not available to rural farmer. Mostly you see that when big company you know takes that farmers produce a potato, they're not able to, they're not paying very good handsome amount. But in market, they are selling just like 15 gram of potato at the rate of 10 rupees or 20 rupees, something like that. So you can understand that they are selling potatoes at 2000 rupees per kg. If farmer gets this technology, and even the small machine provided by the government on subsidy or on free basis or on even purchase basis, farmer can convert their potato into chips. It is not only chips, I am talking about one product, but chips means there may be n number of uses of potatoes, and the final product, because potato becomes intermediary product, input product, raw material for industry. So if you give technology, if you help them financially, if you give them knowledge, obviously, if you give them market means, suppose some particular youth starts a startup and start producing any detergent soap, so that youth does not have that much of a strong financial background or technology to compete with these multinationals, right? So all alone that startup would not stand in market. So that means that startup would not find a place in shops. Government has to support, government has to provide market. And when government will provide market, it means usually government says, okay, our khadi ashrams are there and we will acquire that rural produce and we will sell in khadi ashrams or khadi retail outlets. But how long government is promoting those retail outlets against these big bazaars and all those big retail outlets of Reliance? Now Big Bazaar is again of Reliance. Reliance has acquired this future capital, future retail. So, and even we are living in urban area, how many times we go to these outlets, retail khadi retail outlets, to purchase some cloth or to purchase some soap or to purchase some detergent soap or powder or oil or shampoo or like that. So we are not promoting these markets, these products, and that is why those startups fails, because they are not able to generate revenue. And because of that, we need to learn that there is an importance of rural entrepreneurship. We start rural entrepreneurship, promoting rural entrepreneurship, so we can recover from many issues. Proper utilization of the resources. Say for example, we talked about that potato, we talked about that farming produce, we talked about that rural resources, manpower, we talked about that so many resources are there. So those resources may be properly utilized if you promote rural entrepreneurship. You can generate employment, you can develop employment. The generation of employment is very important, so that the labor migration or the people migration from rural area to urban area may be stopped. If they get their employment into their village itself by some businessman or some entrepreneur, maybe from the same area, this will help them a lot. And this will not only help them in their livelihood, rather it will also add to infrastructural development of that area, road, transport, sanitation. Because for transportation of the material or produce or product of industry, government need to build up roads, good roads. Government need to provide electricity. Government need to provide road and transports and sanitation and civil amenities. So infrastructural development would automatically grow up. Social and economic development is a byproduct of rural entrepreneurship. When their livelihood would increase, their earning per capita income would increase in rural area, obviously they will be uplifted socially, they will be uplifted economically, they will have more purchasing power, they will have more money into their hand, and they can have a better future of their next generation. It is not only that social economic development, it is also educational development. Right now rural people do not think and focus much more on their next generation education. But once they will have some earning and money in their hand, they will educate their kids, and this will automatically, and one generation change means economic development, social development would start. You can see that change. And not only this, if you develop industry into rural area, so there will be uh, you know there will be a management of regional imbalance. Right now the urban economy is strong, rural economy is weak, there is a imbalance. The urban employment is high, rural employment is low. imbalance. Urban per capita earning, rural per capita income, there is a regional imbalance. City is developed, village is not developed, regional imbalance. One region is developed and one region is not developed. But if you develop that entrepreneurship in rural area by simple one stage or one step, you can to some extent manage this imbalance. Promoting cultural heritage is again very important, because what I feel that rural area you will find that very strong culture, and this cultural heritage can be protected, promoted, developed, which may be a differentiating factor, big differentiating factor in rural and urban entrepreneurship. Altogether, in urban entrepreneurship, you find the financial resources. The banks are ready. Your purchasing power is there. Credibility is there. So, what makes the difference? What are the differentiating factors in rural entrepreneurship and urban entrepreneurship? If you look at in rural entrepreneurship, you may have a large raw resources, but in urban, you may not find a very large big number of raw resources. Limited resources are there, maybe that raw material, say for example potato we talked about, so vegetables, all those raw material or products related to farming, related to villages. So you may find, even we talked about that, manpower also. Low infrastructure in rural area, low infrastructure is low infrastructure versus strong infrastructure in urban area is again a differentiating factor. Infrastructure in rural, they don't have exposure, business exposure, but in urban area they have industrial exposure, they have professional exposure. Even every shopkeepers in urban area and rural area, they do have different approach. The urban shopkeeper is considered as businessman. In rural shopkeeper, they are not considered as businessman, they are considered as dukan chala raha hai. In urban area, you can look at that. When you go to Mumbai or you can go to Delhi, even if someone is having a small kirana store, they say we are businessman. We are doing business in China, Chandni Chowk. But if you go to rural area, even in Kanpur, someone is doing business in Gurudev market or some Nawabganj market, they're not treated like that, because it is semi-rural area, semi-rural, I say. Or this mentality is very big in differentiating. Weak financial resources in a rural area is another very big cause, whereas in urban area you can have financial resources. Even weak finance, weak, why we say weak? The money lenders are there, they can provide you money, but they will charge like 2 taka, and you don't know what 2 taka per month or per semester or per year, you don't know. Whereas in urban area, banks very clearly gives you terms and conditions. So financial resources are strong, and this makes a differentiating very big difference. No market resources in rural area, whereas there is a huge market resource. Even if rural person or gram pradhan is supposed to purchase a TV, he'll say that okay, I'll go to city to purchase this TV. So it means even the customer is coming from rural area to urban area. So urban market is capable to attract the rural customers, but rural resources are not able to attract the urban technology, urban entrepreneurs. I say if rural area is having very strong resources, they can very easily attract the entrepreneurs, that yes, look, we have resources, we have manpower, we have a land area, we have all those facilities, and you come here and establish this industry. But some way, these factors are very much affecting. And this last point that I need to discuss is strong ethics. Sometimes rural entrepreneurship fails because of ethics. Because if you look at that industrial success in India, industry cannot be successful with 100% ethical practices. In urban area, they will do some unethical practices in terms of manpower, employment, electricity, licensing, that local inspection, the product quality, their market practices. So there are unethical practices, and because of that, sometime rural entrepreneur is finding it very difficult to do business professionally, going against with their ethics, strong ethics. And this factor is also an important factor to look into, because of which usually the rural entrepreneurs fails. So this is all about rural entrepreneurship as well as urban entrepreneurship. I believe that I have focused on rural entrepreneurship most of, and you will be able to understand the urban entrepreneurship in a very big way. It is very easy. So this completes my today's lecture.